Запись включилась.
А у меня вот появилась возможность тоже записывать. Все, говорю, хорошо. Вы тогда, когда Максим включит перевод, вы туда перескакиваете в английскую версию. И
Дамы и господа, здравствуйте. Меня зовут Максим Орел, я буду переводить для вас синхронно и сейчас подскажу, как можно выбрать нужный вам язык. Я сделаю это на 2 языках, потом включу панель перевода, и вы сможете общаться без пауз. Ladies and gentlemen, hello, I'm Maxim Orel and I'm going to interpret for you simultaneously today. Now let me advise you on how to proceed in your language of preference. I'm going to do that in both languages, then I will switch on the interpretation panel and you will be able to talk barrier free. Как только мы включим синхронный перевод, в нижней части экрана вы увидите значок глобуса. Пока его там нет, но скоро появится. На мобильных устройствах вместо глобуса у вас будут 3 точки. Пожалуйста, нажмите на глобус, либо на 3 точки и там на функцию перевода, и выберите русский язык. После этого говорите только на языке, который вы выбрали, например, по-английски, в русский канал говорить нельзя, когда будете задавать вопросы. As soon as we switch on the interpretation, a globe icon will appear at the bottom of your screen. It isn't there yet, but it will show up soon. If you're joining from a mobile device, you will need 3 dots, not a globe. So please click or tap on the globe icon or the 3 dots first and then the language interpretation option and pick English. After that, make sure you only speak in the language you have selected and do not speak in Russian on the English channel when you ask questions during the Q&A. Не говорите напрямую в свое устройство через встроенный в него микрофон, а используйте гарнитуру с наушниками и внешним микрофоном, веб-камеру с направленным микрофоном или хотя бы беспроводные AirPods. Если у вас активен VPN, отключите его на время вебкаста. Пожалуйста, выключайте микрофон, если вы в данный момент не говорите. Please do not speak directly into the built-in microphone of your device, but use a headset with an external microphone, a webcam with a directional mic, or at least your wireless AirPods. If you have your VPN on, please disconnect it for the time of this call. Do not forget to mute your mic when you listen. Итак, если у вас нет вопросов или комментариев по технической части, я включаю функцию синхронного перевода. So unless there are questions or remarks on the technical side, I'm switching on simultaneous interpretation right now.
спасибо, Максим. Я бы хотел для начала также отметить, что данный звонок будет записываться для последующего распространения в социальных сетях и в YouTube на каналах компании и в наших каналах. Также я хотел ответить, что я разослал презентационные материалы заранее до звонка, поэтому те, кто будет слушать нас на английском языке, смогут использовать также английскую версию презентации. А мы будем идти...
Listeners will be able to use the English presentation while we will be sharing the Russian version of the slide. Without further ado, over to Tatiana Budei, CFO at Uzbek Steel, and she will take us through the recent 16 months of Uzbek Steel's operation, starting the beginning of 2022. Tatiana Budei, thanks a lot, Karen. I'm happy to welcome all the participants of our traditional webcast. As usual, I'm here with you, CFO at Uzbek Steel. The key investment message for today's webcast is certainly the announcement of the additional share issue that we are running. This is a long-awaited event for our team. Also, I will briefly comment on the operational and financial performance the full year 2022 and Q1 2023 under the local GAAP. After the presentation, you will have an opportunity to ask questions if there are any. Now, before we begin, please be reminded that today's presentation may and will contain forward-looking statements that are subject to certain risks and uncertainties. So please see slide 2 of the presentation for the risks explained arising out of such forward-looking statements related to a financial and operational performance of our business in the future. Now over to page 3 for the results of our performance of the recent 16 months, starting the beginning of 2022. We believe that this is the beginning of 2022, that we took an active position in the local and global capital and debt markets. The next slide shows the key highlights, the key events. These are united by one main thing. The strategy of Uzbek Steel centered around by expanding our production capacities, in particular driven by the cast and rolling complex. Our ambitious plans are the starting point of all our subsequent actions aimed at strengthening our balance sheet metrics and boosting our investment appeal. These are needed in order to keep financing our CAPEX plan investment program and to take out further capital, further debt, and also in view of the upcoming FPO. Here we are focused not just on local players, but also on international investors, including institutional investors. During the period, we secured a BB- outlook stable rating from Fitch, which is on par with the sovereign rating of Uzbekistan. During the same year, we've strengthened our management team, adding global competences, expertise in terms of risk governance, international compliance, HR management, IT development, security, and commercial operations. Let me emphasize compliance here, where we hired experts with global competences. This function is directly reporting to our supervisory board, where we have fine-tuned processes of international compliance, especially, which is very important now in terms of international sanctions compliance. Together with the Western experts that we deploy, we are working to work out our long-term sustainability program, and we're running our resource efficiency audit jointly with IBRD and international experts of Rhino. The experts have drafted a list of relevant projects for us to implement going forward. Talking about our financial metrics in 2022, we saw our revenue record for a second year in a row, and also we hit the second highest net income level this year. All the measures that we took helped us strengthen and broaden our relations with international banks. We secured we strengthened these relations in order to take out ECA-covered loans from SAIS and Ole Hermes. Then our supervisory board in the beginning of this year made a decision about the additional rights issue that I mentioned earlier today. Why we have done this is to keep financing our CAPEX plan, in particular the construction of the cast and rolling complex that we announced a year ago, and we reiterate our ambition to double our production capacity towards the end of 2025. This plan is still intact. Now, slide 4 shows details on the process of the additional share issue. To begin with, the Supervisory Board of Uzbek Steel met on the 10th of March 2022 to resolve on an additional issue of 177,626,748 ordinary shares and 141,577,773 preferred shares at the price of 8,959 sols and 2,820 sols, respectively. The Ministry of Economy and Finance registered the prospectus on the 5th of April 2023. Shareholders that appear on the register as at the 16th of March may start buying the additional shares on the 8th of May 2023. The deadline for tickets to be filed and payments to be made is the 18th of May. The fund, the Uzbekistan Fund for Reconstruction and Development, is going to buy all the preferred shares and also part of the ordinary shares. The financial impact of the issue is going to be limited by raising the additional capital from non-UFRD investors, since 140 million euros from UFRD have already been received by the company, and upon the registration of the deal, they will be reclassified from accounts payable to equity. We are happy to see the Agency for Strategic Development and also the Uzbekistan Fund for Reconstruction and Development among our shareholders. This additional share issue will help minority investors buy additional shares at the market price as at the 3rd of March 2023 pro rata their current shareholding using their preemptive right. If not all minority investors use their preemptive right, then the outstanding unclaimed shares will be bought by Abu Dhabi Uzbek Investment Company, an institutional investor. We believe if this happens, this will be another positive signal for private international institutional investors in view of the upcoming FPO. Let me emphasize the key task of this additional rights issue. This is to help Uzbek Steel strengthen its balance sheet metrics, boost its authorized capital, opening up additional opportunities for taking out more debt and to raise additional funding for financing of the current CAPEX plan. The registration and the ultimate results of the deal will be duly announced on a separate notice on the 9th of June 2023, but we indicatively see it now that as a result of this additional share issue, the government, as represented by the Agency for Strategic Development and the UFRD, will be controlling up to 99.0% of the whole equity, whereas Abu Dhabi Uzbek Investment Company and minorities will be controlling around 10% of our equity. I believe the structure of the capital, as split between the government and minorities, will be maintained approximately in the current parameters. Now, before we move on to specific operational and financial numbers, let me briefly remind you of the key investment highlights of equity story for Uzbek Steel. We are the largest integrated manufacturer of rolled steel in Uzbekistan. We're the largest one in the nation, and we still focus on the local markets, where we sell 99.0% of our products. At the same time, we actively look at international markets and try and use all opportunities. For example, in 2022, we incorporated our own trade representative office in the European Union in order to get closer to European customers. After quality certification in the EU, we structured our supplies to the European Union in order to deliver up to 10% of our products there. Regardless of the large output, which is around 1 million tons per annum, we've been able to satisfy just a third of the growing needs of Uzbekistan for steel in 2022. This makes us optimistic about the sales markets, but also it has helped us start our ambitious CAPEX plan in order to double our production capacity towards the end of 2025 on the back of the cast and rolling complex. Uzbekistan is favorable in terms of regulatory matters because our government prioritizes the development and upgrade of local steelmaking industry. As a way to support key players of the sector, Uzbek Steel has exclusive rights to procure scrap metal in the country, which provides us with around 88.0% of our feedstock. Uzbek Steel has a solid financial foundation. We saw 2 consecutive years of record high revenues with net margins of over 15%. We are generally optimistic about the outlook of development and growth of Uzbek Steel. And just a couple of words about the progress of our cast and rolling complex. Please see the pictures on the slide. These are as at autumn 2022 and spring 2023. You can see the progress right away of this important asset. To remind you, when this comes on stream, our production capacity is going to be doubled from 1.1 million tons to 2.2 million tons per annum towards the end of 2025. At the same time, we are going to do a phased launch of it starting 2024. The estimated cost of the project amounts to 730 million euros as at late April 2023, we've invested 320 million euros, including 84 million euros out of our own funds. We're going to keep financing the project through a mix of equity and debt financing, utilizing loans from local and global banks. Now, to continue the talk on our loans, page 7 shows our loan book, loan portfolio, and its amortization schedule. As at the end of Q1 2023, our debt was more than 80% up year on year, and this is a fully expected and planned event. This is driven by our continued investment into the construction of the cast and rolling complex. We keep paying for our debt at good rates. This is 6 to 9% on loans in hard currencies and 14 to 23% for some denominated loans. Our net debt leverage is 1.5 times EBITDA, which is very comfortable, being really lower than the cap of 3.5 times. Over to our financial metrics for 2022. The year was pretty good for Uzbek Steel. I must say, we kept operating at full swing, boasting utilization rates of 100%, and we were able to increase our revenue by 1.2% year on year. For a second year in a row, we hit our revenue record, and also the good performance was contributed into by relatively stable pricing. Please see the chart on the slide. And regardless of the softening steel prices globally, in Uzbekistan, we see demand that is stronger than the supply, so it helped us to operate with relatively stable pricing. Our margins were down in 2022. This was quite planned and expected because the performance of 2021 was record high for the whole steel market and for us. To remind you, in 2021, we had our revenue up by more than 50%, and our net income was up more than 5.5 times year on year, meaning in 2021 versus 2020. So 2021 was a high base. Now, talking about financial performance for Q1 2023, you can see a 6% reduction in revenue year on year that was driven by disruptions in electricity supply that affected all the large industrial enterprises here in Uzbekistan. So we're not alone here. Also, we were affected by harsh weather conditions that hampered finished product shipments. So during the cold weather and forced disruptions, we were unable to maintain a 100% capacity utilization rate, but as early as in Q2, we were able to get back to normal. However, certainly a gross profit was down 49% year on year. To reiterate, the reason was harsh weather conditions and reduced revenues as a consequence of that, and also we faced an expected increase in cost of goods sold that was going up in parallel with strengthening energy prices, which was the case for all the industrial enterprises in Uzbekistan. So during this challenging period with forced downtime, we had an opportunity to do some scheduled maintenance, which also contributed to a higher cost of goods sold. Regardless of a better balance in net finance income and expense as compared to the previous year, our net income was down 41% year on year, with margins being down 7 percentage points. These events, I mean, the harsh weather conditions and power supply disruptions, which negatively affected our performance in Q1 2023, these were of a one-off nature. Having said that, we expect better financial performance starting the second quarter of this year as we speak. Now, to wrap up my presentation, I would like to briefly touch upon our immediate plans for 2023. Our top priority is still to implement our production capacity expansion project. This year, we're going to invest some 240 million euros in the project. Also, we keep working on improving our investment appeal. During the year, we're going to further strengthen our corporate governance practices, nominate independent directors, which is the top priority for our supervisory board this year. It's important for us to have the Fitch rating affirmed, but in addition to that, we're going to secure an ESG rating this year. After we complete the additional share issue we're talking about now, and after we strengthen our authorized capital, we will be ready to make a follow-on public offering at the Tashkent Stock Exchange. We're going to do this in 2023. Talking about the financial numbers, as I said, we are back to full production capacities starting Q2 2023. We still see strong demand for our products with relatively stable pricing, and we constantly work to reduce cost of goods sold, and we believe that margins at Uzbek Steel on a full year basis will certainly be better than Q1 2023. And also, certainly our liquidity position remains strong, with the net debt leverage cap remaining intact at within 3.5 times EBITDA. Now, at this point, I would like to thank you for your time and attention, and I will be happy to take your questions now. Karen, please. Thank you a lot, Tatiana. Now, we are getting faster and faster every time. That's good training. Tatiana, yeah, but anyway, it's taken some half an hour, right? Karen, dear participants, please feel free to actively participate in our Q&A session. Please use the Q&A form at the bottom of your Zoom screen. This is too empty for now, so let me start with my own questions. Now, we've heard quite a few these questions. For example, the participation of the UFRD in the additional rights issue. Why is that needed, and so on? Tatiana. Yeah. At the beginning of the project, I mean the cast and rolling complex, and this is, by the way, is the core reason behind everything that's going on in our life. So at the beginning of the project, the nominal capital of Uzbek Steel was just $20 million. At the same time, the project budget is estimated at 730 million euros. Now, our then balance sheet metrics virtually did not let us take out any funding in the required volume from whatever banks you can think of, either global or local. So this was a large barrier for us in taking out funding. So this was the first and the main reason why we embarked on finding solutions to boost our authorized capital. Now, why UFRD, Uzbekistan Fund for Reconstruction and Development? Uzbek Steel, during the implementation of this project, does not offer any sovereign guarantees or collateral to lending banks. Now, for international banks to feel more comfortable, so to speak, in banking with us, we've engaged the Uzbekistan Fund for Reconstruction and Development as a state-owned structure with a particular mandate to facilitate the development of strategically important projects for Uzbekistan industry. We engage them as a shareholder. Now, why is such a split into ordinary and preferred shares? Now, first and foremost, UFRD is an investment vehicle, and certainly an investment fund wants quick return on investment. So they would appreciate a stable, although not too high, dividend return on preferred shares will be a good return for their investment. Karen, thank you very much. We've started getting questions in the form, in the Q&A chat. And the most frequent one is surprisingly why we need ESG rating, and also if we're going to secure any green financing. Tatiana, that's a good one. Why we need ESG is as follows. Now, ESG ratings and whatever is concerned with ESG have a direct practical dimension. Now, this is one of the questions that we constantly hear from international financial institutions, investors who are indicatively or prospectively ready to offer us some funding. This is one of the very first questions that we hear. Now, what's with ESG? Is there a strategy? Are there controlled metrics? How we're going to keep developing on the ESG side? Now, for us, the most important thing is that ESG is a certain basis, a foundation that helps us talk about sustainable development. What's that about? Again, we are a city-forming enterprise. We are the backbone enterprise for the city of Bekabad. We are vitally important for the inhabitants of Bekabad and directly adjacent settlements. So we are responsible for the comfort of their lives, because if something goes wrong, this may make the people unhappy. This may make people unhappy with Uzbek steel, and this may well lead to roads blocked, to our operations disrupted. Maybe these are too strong metaphors, but I'm just giving them to show the picture. Now, what's environment? Environment is about resource consumption. And a vital resource that we operate on is water resources. Everyone knows that the situation with water resources is quite acute, quite challenging in the Republic of Uzbekistan, and water is an important resource for us. So we can't help dealing with the matter, because this may critically affect our business continuity. Now, what's corporate governance? The G of the ESG acronym. This is relations with our current shareholders. This is the possibility of structuring a constructive dialogue with investors, so the investors are comfortable, so they're motivated to invest in our operations. And this is yet another important mission of what we do that may also critically affect our business. So ESG is important for us not just to tick the relevant box in the questionnaire, but rather to reasonably follow what we need to support and maintain our operations. Also, these days, this is one of the very first questions that we hear whoever we talk to about securing prospective financing. Talking about green financing, now what I've mentioned in my presentation, I mean the resource efficiency audit that we have completed within our project, joint project together with the eBirdie, and the eBirdie is currently having their annual meeting in Samarkand, Uzbekistan. So this set of projects and raising funds for the projects are exactly green financing. Now, I wouldn't talk about green bonds this year because the market situation is not best for that, so to speak, for a green bond offering this year. Karen, thank you very much. And a follow-up, can we give the name of the ESG rating company? Tatiana, no, I won't be able to give the name. This is an acronym of 3 letters. I'm just concerned with making a mistake in one of the letters. I'm sorry. I apologize. Sometimes letters in an acronym play differently, you know, but this will happen this year for sure. Karen, now a set of questions about debt raising. International loans, are they already signed or are they in progress of signing? What are the maturities, currencies, and so on? Tatiana, now the international loans that I've mentioned to finance the construction of the custom rolling complex are now at the stage of discussing a loan agreement with the syndicate of banks. The syndicate is already there. We've secured all the required approvals, and our plan is to sign an agreement up until the end of June to start getting funding. The borrowing currency is euro, and the loan rate is going to be linked to Euribor plus bank margin. Karen, thank you. Now, a few questions on finance. Let me group them together. Now, why is gross profit of Q1 is higher than in Q4 last year? And in terms of net income and revenue, you have some softening. And also, how will the reduction in utilization rate in January impact your full year targets and revenue targets post CRC launch? Tatiana, I wasn't able to memorize all of your question. Let's start with the full year 2023 financial impact expectations. Now, to remind you, our process is twofold. Number one, steel production, and number two, finished rolled products from billets, from semi-finished product. Now, the power disruptions did affect our capabilities of producing products. By the way, we use electric arc furnaces that are really green. Now, so the key impact on our production was concerned with the first part, which is steel production. Talking about the second part, rolling products, this is where we have some headroom where we could accelerate towards the year end. Here we will be able, we have an opportunity to catch up with the backlog. We've lost some time, and so in terms of operating the electric arc furnace to make steel, we won't be able to catch up with that. But in terms of the steel rolling operations, this is where we would be able to catch up towards the year end. So full year 2023 is no worse than our budget expectations. Karen, now a few questions on the corporate side, expectations from the annual general meeting, dividend payment possibility, IFRS statement, post and timeline for full year, and the extent to which shareholders may decide to use the current share issue. Tatiana, well, the shareholders' activity is sort of a difficult question. To tell you the truth, we don't have any estimates of the shareholders' activity during the rights issue, so we fully rely on what is going on, and we'll see what we have. Our task was to offer the preemptive right to the current shareholders so they are not diluted and they keep their shareholdings pro rata to what they have now, but we can't make them. But you know, when you have 10,000 shareholders, you can't really run a survey to figure out who is going to participate and who is not. Talking about IFRS statements publication, our auditor is currently busy doing their work. Pro forma statements are ready with all the required disclosures. Now the audit team of KPMG is busy working on their mandate, and assumingly during the coming couple of weeks they will complete their procedures, then verification procedures on the auditors and will follow, and no later than the end of June we'll have the statements published. So we typically start to post the financial statements no later than the 15th of June. The 30th of June is the traditional planned date for our annual meeting. I don't think anything will change. A dividend resolution will be discussed at the annual general meeting. All the recommendations of the supervisory board will be duly published in the public sources, so please watch the news, watch the publications, and model your own projections as to what payments, what kind of payments may take place in the future. Karen, thank you. There were a few questions on FPO plans, timelines, targets, volumes, and the expected use of proceeds. Tatiana, let me start with the end, just like we always do. Certainly, we'll use the proceeds to finance our CAPEX plan. Basically, whatever we do is in order to be able to deliver against our CAPEX plan, to deliver against our ambition of doubling the production capacity, and also following up on the previous question, given the average expectations on the hot-rolled steel, hot-rolled sheet, the price is on par with real products. So I believe this will result in basically our revenue doubled. There unlikely to be any deviations. Now, talking about the timeline, I think we'll give the floor to you, Karen, because you are our underwriter, so this question is rather up to you. Now, we are happy to follow your advice, not blindly, but still we do follow your advice. Karen, yeah, thank you. Now, we've mentioned this a few times. We said that we kept waiting for the corporate changes, meaning the current share issue. So now we have our way cleared. Also, we have the AGM in front of us, ahead of us, so we'll see where the shareholders direct us, so to speak, and then we'll start preparing for the FPO. So how we will be able to do our FPO in the second half of the year. Talking about the pricing, we'll be able to discuss this on a separate note when we're able to, but given the current increase in the capital, if we are guided by the same limit, the same cap, 5% of equity, the volume will even grow, which is good. Now, getting back to some other questions, there are some questions about getting production data in physical terms, in volume terms, so to speak, if we can disclose this information. And also, there's some questions about the possible revenue after the CRC is launched. By what number revenue is expected to grow? Tatiana, now, as far as I know, we regularly post our production data, and if I'm mistaken, then we'll try and make this emission good, so to speak. We'll address the gap. In any case, this information is rather interesting for some narrow field experts than for generalist analysis. So we'll double check it and we'll see what we can disclose. In terms of expectations of our CRC revenue, I think I've mentioned this already. We expect a straightforward duplication of the revenue and also higher margins, because the commissioning of the CRC, cast and rolling complex, will not lead to the same pro rata expansion of cost of goods sold. So post-CRC launch, Uzbek steel is expected to secure higher margins. Karen, yeah, there's been one question repeated twice. What's the volume of the ordinary shares to be bought by the UFRD? Now, in order to get an answer, we've got to wait for the disclosure date, and then the exchange rates will also have impact. UFRD has invested 140 million euros, so we'll see which number of shares it will translate to according to the law. Now, the FPO will be done at the Tashkent Stock Exchange. I don't think we have any other plans. Please confirm, Tatiana. I do confirm. No other plans. It's Tashkent. Karen, okay, let's hold the line for another couple of minutes for some more questions to come in. I reckon I've been able to group and summarize all the key questions. In case I missed something, please feel free to reach out to us using our direct contacts. We'll try and transfer the questions to the company. Now, another question. Do you expect high interest of international investors, high demand of international interest invested during your FPO, Tatiana? We do expect a substantial foreign demand from investors at our FPO because we want to have international institutional investors, investment companies, investment funds coming in as our shareholders during the FPO, because it's not just about our interest. Our ambition is also to facilitate the growth and development of the stock market of the Republic of Uzbekistan. So we are not the only beneficiaries of these opportunities, of the opportunities opening up. For the market to grow and develop in the right way, this needs not just sellers, it also needs the buy side. So we are certainly interested in attracting international investors. Karen, let me confirm this. The the offering will be open to everyone, but based on our past experience, we see liquidity shortages and capacity shortages in the market, which we expect, we hope that we'll get substantial demand, substantial interest from international investors, and we rely on support from the government. So this all is facilitated. There is one more question about price, and I'm struggling to understand. Post-IPO prices are down. I'm struggling to understand what they mean because there hasn't been any IPO yet. Now, I think we've been able to address all the questions. Thanks a lot, Tatiana. Thank you, Karen. Karen continues. So we stay in touch with all investors and shareholders. Please stay in touch, reach out to us, and we'll keep maintaining contact through all the channels. So thanks a lot for your participation today. Have a good one. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye.